Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Opa-locka. My name is Gregory Gay. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Opa-locka. And we'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules, and I know a lot of you have businesses that you're running, to be a part of this workshop. And the workshop is basically to talk about signage in the city. About 4.5 years ago, the city had an ordinance change in 2014. And with that ordinance change, they decided to basically come out with a new sign code for the city of Opa-locka to basically look at the type of signage that was placed around different segments of the city. Not only the city's own signage, but it looked at business signage as well, because when you look at it at the end of the day, your signage is basically your greeting card to your potential patrons or visitors to our city. And your signage can basically give an impression to someone whether you're a business that they would like to visit, whether you're a business that they would like to patronize, or whether they need to keep on moving in their car to another destination. So we feel that the signage is as a way of greeting the people that drive through our community on a daily basis is very important. We've calculated thus far that approximately 75 to 100,000 vehicles drive through Opa-locka every day. That's 75 to 1,000 people or more driving through this community every day. And the whole key to having a business operating here is that you want them at some point in time to stop and patronize your business. And the easiest way to get them to stop is by having a quality sign that they will see, that they will recognize, they will get an understanding of what type of business you're providing, and they will want to say, hey, I need to go to support that particular business, or that business is providing a service that would be very important to me, or I want to move my business to that location just because of their signage. And people do pay attention to what type of signage you have as a part of your business or as a part of your building structure to determine whether they want to be in that location or not. Let me just take a step back and introduce a few people who are here that are a part of this meeting. As I said, my name is Gregory Gay, and I'm Director of Planning and Community Development. We also have Mr. Abia, who is our Director and Building Official for the City of Opa-locka. Mr. Abia, raise your hand. All right. We also have members of our code enforcement, Wilma Wilcox. We also have Mr. John Cook. We also have, and your name is escaping me right now. Derek Irwin. Yes, I'm having an issue. If you could just raise your hand. And we have the Chief of Police, Mr. Dobson. Also have members of my staff that are here to participate with this whole dialogue. And basically, what we want to do is go through the process of how our sign code has changed over the last 4.5 years, what certain aspects of the sign code are going to basically sunset. In essence, it will go away, and you will be required to meet the new code requirements. When this ordinance was passed in 2014, for certain aspects of the signage code, you had 5 years to basically make plans and be able to gear up for whatever physical changes needed to be made as a part of your signage. So that sunset is coming up very soon. Matter of fact, it will be September of this year. That's when the sign code goes into full effect. And that's when, if you have not addressed your particular sign issues at that particular time, you would be subject to the city's code violations and citations. So just to get a feel for who's in the room, if I can just have everyone just introduce themselves and say what particular business that you're representing. And Albert, I'm going to start with you because you're in the front row.
I am the property manager for the industrial park of 19,000
Okay, thank you. They are saying it. I'm sorry, go right ahead. Hosi Enterprise. Okay, thank you. Okay, very good, thank you. The gentleman right behind. Okay, thank you very much. You, sir. Okay, thank you. You, sir. Okay, and last but not least.
My name is Nancy Tucker. I represent Opa-locka. It's on Opa-locka Boulevard.
Okay.
I'm the voice for them.
All right, thank you. And again, I say thank you for taking time out of your schedules to come and be a part of this. We're not going to make this a very long process. We just basically want to bring everyone up to speed as to where we are with the sign code. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have Mr. Gerald Lee come forward, and he's going to give you a presentation as to what the whole sign code process is all about, examples of what we feel is good signs, and some signs that are going to be in those gray areas where they would need to make some improvements. And just to let you know, since the sign code has been in place, we've had about 14 businesses or 14 properties actually upgrade their signs to the new sign code. So we really appreciate them for being the pioneers to move forward and adopting to this particular new sign code. Now, there are several properties still in the city that have the signage from the previous code, and we're going to see how we can help you out through that particular process to bring you up to speed and have you be a part of the new sign code. So, Mr. Lee, if you can come and make a presentation at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gay. I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible. Okay. The purpose and intent of a sign code is to address these issues that are seen on the screen here. It's to beautify the city, to maintain a positive image. Some of the things that Mr. Gay already spoke on: promote public safety, to avoid excessive clutter. And excessive clutter is an important one, because a lot of times when you're doing business, you're only thinking about making sure that people know about the business that you're doing, but you're not looking at how that affects what that looks like as you drive along the roadway or as you come in and out of the city. The sign code is supposed to address all of these things. That's why we have the standards that we do, because the advertising is only one part of getting your message out. It's not only getting the message out, but how you get the message out. Okay?
Excuse me, Mr. Lee, 1 second.
Yes.
Can everybody see the screen from where you're sitting? Because you may need to kind of shift around a little bit. I just want to make sure everyone can see the presentation.
You can see? Okay. Okay, and most of the code as it's stated or as it's shown has different parameters based on where in the city that you are. In fact, different regulations entirely. Some of you that are in industrial districts, it's not required that you have lighted signs, because it's not on a major corridor for people to be able to see you or to improve your business aspect because of the lighting. But the ones that are on major corridors, those major corridors are in the city of Opa-locka: 135th Street, Opa-locka Boulevard, 27th Avenue, 22nd Avenue, 42nd Avenue. Those are the major corridors, and if you're on those corridors, the city's code requires that your signs are lighted, that they follow what the code requires, and that you don't do the things that, as we saw in the first slide, produces clutter or makes it difficult to see or to understand who's doing what, or make it a competition on the street as to who has the most flags, who has the most banners, those kind of things. It's to make it a fair playing field based on the size of your property, the amount of space that you occupy on the street frontage, and the location in the city that your business is. This is what I said before, identifies the major corridors in the city, and the code is related to which one of those you're on, or if you're not on those, then it's somewhat a relaxation of what the code says. Sign regulations are based on, as I said before, I've already covered all of this. The needs of your business, the heights are based on the code, the location and frontage on the major corridors, so on and so forth. When you do a sign plan, of course, anyone who has been doing business with the city understands that a permit is going to be required, and it's going to need to include what you're trying to do, the proposed location of your sign, the dimensions of the sign, the drawings, the landscape plan, and any other the things that are listed in the code. So when you're ready to do a sign, formulate what you want to do, but check it with the code to make sure that what you present is going to be in line with or in compliance with the city's code. That's just procedural. Just says that the city is going to have the right people to review your plan and to deal with what has to be done to get it approved. Yeah, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. The new code allows you to do these type signs that are in the city. That's monument signs, wall signs, directional or informational signs, like when you go to the bank it says turn left or go this way. Entrance feature signs, often when there's a sign just as you come into a property, there'll be a sign saying what business that is. There's certain codes that relate to what should be there. Change copy signs or marquee signs, we don't really do those, but we listed it here. Drive-through menu boards, when you go to the restaurant, Church's, Burger King, McDonald's, there's a sign that gives you the whole menu as you're driving through. There's code relations to what that should be. Sandwich signs, don't even pay attention to that sign unless you're in the downtown area, because it's not allowed anywhere else. Okay, and mural signs, that's probably going to be more an artwork kind of thing than a business related thing. So if you get philanthropic and decide you want to have a huge sign that, I don't know, pays tributes to the whales or something of that sort, you come in, we talk to you about it and tell you what the requirements are going to be. These are examples of monument signs. These are types of monument signs. There's all kinds of opportunities, but I want you to see what a monument sign is supposed to be, so that as you formulate the idea in your mind, try to make it look like something like this or like these. These are businesses that are in the city that have already complied with the code. They've already looked at what they wanted to do and did what they needed to do to be in compliance. They cover different kinds of businesses, but all of them are on major corridors. That one's on Opa-locka Boulevard, that's on 27th Avenue, that's on 22nd, that's on 22nd. That's Amazon. There's a church, Missionary Baptist Church, another gas station, 27th Avenue. These are just some examples that we found on the net. Burger King, that's the Burger King in the city. That's the West Star gas station in the city. It's already in compliance with the monument sign. And if you look at our code, the monument sign is really, it's what the city has approved instead of having pole signs. Because the adage is you want to bring signs from this height at 25 and 20 and 18 and 30 feet down to no more than 15. So that the person driving can see the advertisement of your business without doing that to see it. Or they only see it at a great distance away. Yes, sir.
One of the reasons that we actually looked at doing monument signs and kind of getting away from the pole signs is that there's been traffic studies that have been done over the years of when you have signage that takes the driver's vision off the roadway and at a certain height, that they kind of lose their whole visual understanding of what's going on in front of them. And there's been numerous cases where because of the signage being up so high or the signage being flashy or things like that, that it has caused accidents. So by bringing the signage down to a lower scale, it makes it within a human scale where everything is pretty much viewed at the same level. So you don't have, as Mr. Lee was saying, situations where you're looking up to view a sign, and if it has a lot of information on it, you're trying to read that information, yet you're still moving your vehicle at 40, 45 miles an hour, and you don't realize the person in front of you just stopped because of a red light. Or there may be someone crossing in the pedestrian pathway or at a crosswalk, and you don't see them because you're looking up. So it brings the whole sense of scale down to a human level so that everything stays within your vision.
Okay. The next type of sign that's going to be popular in the city, or most widely used because they have to be lighted because they're on major corridors, are the wall signs. And there's two different examples that you can see in the picture. The first one to the left and the two on the bottom are cabinet signs. They're signs that have a front face with the lighting behind the face, and it allows the sign to be seen at night, so that everybody gets a shot at what business it is because it's on a major corridor. Now the other sign, top left, top right, I'm sorry, is channel lettering, because as you can see, each individual letter is a separate piece. They're all joined and they're all lighted, okay? But that's going to be a sign that's probably a little more expensive, okay? But it does have that thing, okay? So if you want that thing to make your business pop, you probably want a channel lettering sign. However, both are approved, both are permitted, and you just need to know that there's that opportunity. Yes, sir.
One of the things that's very important about signage is the scale of the signage in relationship to the size of the frontage. As you can see with certain businesses, the size of the sign or how tall the sign is, it varies as it relates to whether a business may be closer to the street, or whether it may be further back from the street, or whether a business front may only be 20 feet wide or maybe 60 feet wide. We'd like to keep the size of the signs, at least from a vertical level, pretty much consistent. And then we like it where as the signage, as there's more information that needs to be added to the sign, like the name or anything like that, that you stretch it out across the frontage of the building itself. That way you have an opportunity to get more information in there. In most cases, these cabinet signs, they vary in size from anywhere from 2 to 4 feet in terms of height, and the width is really much based upon the size or the frontage of your business itself.
That information that Mr. Gage just gave, all of that is in the sign code, and when you start to investigate the type of sign and what you want to do, those parameters are in the code to help you with making the best decision that's going to help your business. That last one, yeah, that's the same. Another of the same. This is an example of window signs. In the code, there are all of the standards that address window signage. And for some businesses, this would be a help, and for others, it may not be. But that's a business choice and a business decision. Here are some examples of pole signs which are no longer permitted use. These are the signs that the city's code is getting rid of. This is something else that the city is getting rid of. The wall signs that don't include channel lettering or lighted box or lighted cabinets are signs that are supposed to lose vogue and are no longer permitted. So if you have a wall sign where it was something that's painted on a placard and nailed to the wall or shot into the wall, that's no longer allowed after September of this year. That also goes for banners that have been used for signs, painting on the walls that's used for signs, makeshift signs that aren't lighted on major corridors, any of those are going to be things that you want to begin to plan to move. And I want to say for the record, this was begun, as Mr. Gay said, when this was adopted in 2014, and we sent out letters, we sent out announcements, we put it on the web, we came and dropped flyers to try to let the business community know that 5 years from now, this is going to happen. Here we are at the 11th hour, and now people have not misgivings, but sometimes you just run out of time. Well, we're here to try to help and to usher what you need to help you get there, but we also need the input from the community to know what is it that you need or what is it that you think about where the city is going, because this is legislation that's already approved. We're already approved that these things are going to not be legal. So we needed to bring this back to the business community to see what it is that is your concern about trying to get this done. Okay? More of the same. Banners. There's another pole sign that's at the beauty supply store. This is a picture showing the sandwich signs that used to be along 135th Street. More of the same. Painting on walls, signs on the building that are not lighted signs. They're just attached to the walls. This is not in Opa-locka, but it's another example of the competition that comes up when people just paint on the wall and everybody puts more and more paint, and it becomes clutter and not information. It's just a list of the signs that are allowed, and these are signs that don't require permits. These are not business signs. These are going to be traffic control signs, parking signs, memorial signs, utility signs, real estate signs. When it says flags, this is not flags for advertising. Like if you have one flag on your property, you don't need a permit to put a flag up. And the code does not support having 25 United USA flags all along its perimeter or anything else, because now you're using the country's flag as a part of your advertising to bring attention to your property. And that's by federal law and what the city has already adopted. More temporary signs, political signs, spot search signs, street vendor signs, but they'll have to have a license to be a street vendor. Okay, these are signs that are prohibited. Vehicle signs that are viewed from the right-of-way. That's when you placard a sign onto your car to advertise your business. Roof signs. No sign should be on your roof. Billboard signs. There's a special process to even get a billboard sign, and it probably would have to go through the city and the county because there are laws against it. Animated signs, signs that move. Off-premise signs. You have your business here, but you've got a sign in the middle of the street or close to the street edge. You're allowed to advertise within the parameters of this code, and it requires that that sign is on your property and nowhere else. Bench signs, don't worry about that because that's usually something that the county and the city deals with. But unless you go through that process to have your advertising on that sign, you should not be on a bench sign. Monument sign standards. In order to achieve uniform and coordinated signage, follow the code, because the standards that are required for you to get a monument sign are in the code. That's more of the same about those standards. These are some general informational points about wall design standards. Mr. Gay already mentioned them. It is that the wall signs are based on the street frontage, the size of your property, and how big you want the sign to be based on what the code allows you to do. These are the standards for window signs. That's going to be in the code, so if you're interested, those individual items are the ones that you would follow to do your window signs. And I think today is this meeting that we're having with you. And what I want to do after this is to try to get some comments about the business community's thought of complying with the city's code. Mr. Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Now, we pretty much have laid out what, in a real quick process, what some of the rules and regulations as it relates to the new sign code. Now, we know that there have been expressions of some concerns as it relates to what type of sign, how much of an expenditure I would have to convert from one particular sign to another sign. And as a matter of fact, I just viewed earlier today, as a part of the next commission meeting, there is proposed legislation to extend for 6 months the window of opportunity for having your signage conform to the new code. So even though, as it stands right now, September of this year is kind of like the date where everything needs to shift from the previous code to the new code. If this legislation should pass at the next commission meeting, you will probably get a 6-month extension, which is basically taking you into March of 2020 to be able to conform to those new rules and regulations. Now, I'll have to say this, that the signage code is just like any other aspect of our zoning code, and it is a document that is subject to change. We have heard that there are some concerns about certain types of signs that may be permissible in one location of the city, but not permissible in another location of the city. And there have been, issues as it relates to signs that have been temporarily placed on the side of the street to kind of attract business. You may be having a special for some type of service or some type of product, and that you want to advertise specifically for that day or that week or that month. And in a lot of cases, those signage are placed in such a way where they are somewhat in the visual path of drivers. They may be in the walking path of pedestrians as they're walking along the sidewalk. So they're placed in the right-of-way of the street. And we have concerns as it relates to those particular types of signs being placed there, because it may create a safety hazard. May create a safety hazard for a driver, maybe create a safety hazard for a person walking up and down the street, someone waiting at a bus stop. So we know that there are issues, or there have been expressions of some concerns related to those temporary type of signs and where they're located within the city. There's an opportunity where if it's a big enough a concern, we can have those issues addressed, and there may be an opportunity to amend the code to allow them, as long as it doesn't inhibit someone's vision or their safety as they walk down a public street. So I at least wanted to put that information out on the record so that you can understand that we're not just trying to place these new types of signs on you to say, this is it, no ifs, no ands, no buts. Yes, there's opportunity for change. This is actually an introduction of change to bring on a new type of signage. And it's actually part of the overall city's vision. Several years ago, there was a visioning process called 2020 for Opa-locka. And that's where this ideal came about. They wanted to look at an opportunity to, for lack of a better phrase, rebrand the city and make it a little bit more progressive, to make it a little bit more visually appealing to not just the people residing in Opa-locka, but for the business owners and for the commuters that are driving through the community. So this is not something that just came out of the clear blue sky. There was a lot of work and meetings and things that have been held for a number of years. It's just that the legislation went into place in the fall of 2014, and it had a sunset date of 2019, and here we are in the year 2019. So we felt that it was important to at least have a face-to-face meeting to get this information to you and to hear some of your concerns. So it's at this point we're going to make this a public forum. So if there's anyone who has some ideals or some concerns that they would like to express, we do have a mic, so we can move that around, and wherever you are, you can make those concerns be known, and our staff will be taking notes to make sure that we have that information for you. So if anyone has any questions, concerns, ideals, thoughts, what have you, now is the time.
My question is about the tenant signs that own businesses. And I happen to be in one of the main corridors. Are they required to have a sign at all?
They're not required to have a sign, but I don't know too many brick and mortar businesses that can stand alone without having some type of signage, unless they're on the internet.
Completely agree with you, but
So,
these small tenants, I mean, I try to keep my signs uniform. They're
Mhm.
not lighted or anything like that, but that was a concern. Are they absolutely required? You're telling me they're not.
it would be best if they did have some
I
type of
agree.
signage, especially if they're receiving mail as a business. There's minimal information that has to be there to basically represent what type of business it is and where it's located. But if, in terms of a larger type of sign that they're marketing to the general public, that's not a requirement.
Okay, okay.
Questions? Questions?
Good evening. My name is Aldo Molina, again, maintenance manager of the Opa-locka Flea Market. Recently we've been doing a lot of renovating, and we do have a couple signs that concern me. We just renovated, I guess there's a pole billboard sign that's on 37th Avenue, the Douglas Lejeune connector. And it's on our property behind the fence. I guess we'll get with Mr. Cook and stuff to see if we're into any violation with that. And also the back wall, it's a painted sign, it's an old sign.
Mhm.
That's also behind the fence, but also on the 37th Avenue. That concerns me, that we might need to address. I guess we'll get with Mr. Cook again. And also if we could get a picture of the diagram with the streets that the targeting, as far as the signage goes. Thank you.
Yes, we can provide that information to you. As a matter of fact, we're going to have this presentation available on the city's website. So if you want to see it a little bit, on your own time and look at it a little bit more in detail, there is an opportunity to do that. We have had conversations in relationship to the flea market site overall, and there have been expressions of there needs to be some sense of a meeting of the minds, for lack of a better phrase, because we do realize that the flea market is a large employer for the city of Opa-locka, and that it's kind of in a unique situation. As I spoke before, there are opportunities where we may look at, if the legislation can be prepared and the commission agrees to it, there may be an opportunity to look at grandfatherships for particular properties. But I don't know if that's going to move forward at this time because the legislation has not been prepared. But there have been some discussions, especially looking at the wall, looking at certain areas where you have a wall that is so high. And it's like, where do you have an opportunity to put a monument sign if you decided to go that particular route? Now, I know mostly along the connector side of the flea market, there aren't too many opportunities to actually enter into the flea market from that side. I think there's like one area toward the northern end of the flea market, and then for the most part, everybody enters off of Lejeune. So, and I know there's been some expressions of concern as it relates to, I guess it's kind of a marquee type of entry that you have that's been there for a number of years. I think even prior to the flea market actually becoming a flea market. So we do realize that there are some concerns that relate specifically to that property, and we're going to be getting together to see how we can work those issues out. Questions?
I have a question on behalf of staff. Are there any businesses located within the CRA?
That's a good question. As some of you may or may not know, the City of Opa-locka has a community redevelopment agency, and it takes up approximately 18% of the City of Opa-locka. It covers not all of the commercial corridors, but I would say that it covers probably 50% of the commercial corridors in the city. It's mainly down Opa-locka, part of Opa-locka Boulevard, Alibaba, pretty much from one end of the city to the other, half of 27th Avenue, a portion of 22nd Avenue, and then there's an edge condition right along the connector that the CRA covers. We've done a list, and we've looked at it from the standpoint of what particular businesses are located within the CRA. That list has approximately 168 businesses or structures, I should say, that are within the CRA. Now, we are looking at opportunities for those businesses that will qualify for looking at facade improvement. Now, as a part of the facade improvements, signage is something that could be considered for financial assistance on the improvement. We're still working out the details as it relates to that particular endeavor that we would like to launch hopefully by the summer of this year. But it would be another opportunity to help out businesses within the City of Opa-locka, especially if you're within the community redevelopment area.
Thank you, sir.
Questions?
Yes. I have a lot. I don't need this, trust me, this travels.
Well, I think for recording purposes, if you could use it, because we are recording.
And if we can turn it off, that'll be great. I've got quite a few questions. For a monumental sign stands about 4 foot high.
Not all of them.
Going down Opa-locka Boulevard, you're not going to see it where I am. Not in that little bit.
Could you give me your address? I'm not quite familiar with your address.
2170. The pawn shop right there aside of Family Dollar.
Okay.
All right? You're not going to see it. The other is the signage that I've got on my walls. All right? It states our name. It states what we do. That's it. It doesn't overdo anything. We get graffiti on there all the time. We are constantly painting this thing to keep it good and fresh and up to where it should be. All we're looking to do is keep the place beautified. When we have to change to these monumental signs or these channel signs, are you going to grant us a beautification grant to be able to help us pay for this? Because a small businessman can't do it on their own. We are talking for a monumental sign and channel sign, we are talking anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 for the two of them. I can't do that. So I am asking you, how are you going to be able to help me? I would rather see my streets cleaned up here. I would rather see the killings stop from across the street from me at the warehouses. I would rather see things happen. When I call the police department and it takes them 2 hours to get to me, yeah, we're worried about signs? I'm not. I'm worried about safety.
Thank you for those questions. As it relates to whether the city will be in a position to assist you with funding, we are looking at different funding sources. Your property is not within the CRA, so that funding source will not be available to you, but we are also looking at partnering with Miami-Dade County through their facade improvement program to seek out funding through them, through the community development block grant opportunities as well. So we're looking for those opportunities because we do understand that there are businesses that are financially challenged. And we're looking for those opportunities to assist them where we can assist them. Now, is it going to be a 100% grant? I can pretty much tell you right now it's not. So there's going to have to be some equity from the property owner or the business owner to kind of meet the costs. What that percentage is, as it stands right now, I don't know. We are in the process of seeking out those particular grant dollars to assist local businesses within the city of Opa-locka to help them out as it relates to those particular costs. So we're looking for the money. Once the money is granted and it becomes available, we will be seeking out those particular businesses that are interested and need the assistance. In terms of whether a monument sign can or cannot be seen along that corridor, we already have an example of two monument signs that are already on that corridor.
On the corner of the street. Of course you're going to see them there.
We'll be able to work with you, and monument signs are not limited to 4 feet. You can have a monument sign as high as 12 feet. It's all about how the sign is placed on your property. So we can work with you on that.
It's a lot more money too.
We're looking for the grant monies to help you out.
What about, we've got to take off all the lettering and everything by September? I mean, it's something that keeps our walls fresh. We are out there all the time, painting, refreshing, and keeping the place decent. That's what we do. When we first moved into this place, it was a shithole. Not anymore. I'm just saying.
Well, as I've explained before, the city was looking at rebranding itself, and signage was one of the things that we were focused on. Now, my department is pretty much revolving around the development and the economic opportunities within the city. And I know you expressed the safety concerns as well. They do go hand in hand, because as you beautify an area, as you make it look much more presentable, there is statistics that show that the crime rate goes down because people don't want to be in an area that is viewed as viable.
Not when you got a pawn shop, buddy.
I've seen pawn shops that blend into a community, and you wouldn't even know it was a pawn shop. So the opportunity is there. So we're willing to work with you if you're willing to work with us. We can make it happen.
I don't mind working with you as long as I've got some help. I've got some time. I've got some type of funds that are able to help me with this. If I don't have that, how can I keep the employees employed? How can I run a business? And you're talking lighted monuments or lighted signs.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I have to worry about lighting my sign if I close at 5:30 because our streets are too bad?
I think it's more so about the marketing of your business, because people are not just passing by your business during your business hours. They may see a sign at non-business hours and say, oh, I want to go and patronize that place. I see the hours of operation, and then they come back during the time when they can patronize your business. Because you're not marketing just during the time that you're there. You're marketing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even at that location, every time a car drives by your business, you're marketing to them. They may or may not need your services at that particular time, but when they do, they're going to see that sign. And once they see that sign, they'll know what type of service you provide and what hours of operation you have and when they can come and be a patron to your business. That's what a sign is all about. That's how signs work.
But trust me, I got 7 other businesses. This one here is the toughest. And you guys are beating on my door all the time. At this one, not at the other 7. I don't have a problem with them. Something with Opa-locka. I don't know.
Are all 7 within Opa-locka, or they're in other,
No.
there are other parts of Dade County?
We've got 3 in Miami. We've got 4 up in Broward County.
Okay. But as I was saying, with the painted signs, there are a lot of communities that have gone away from painted signs because they want to create a newer and a fresher image. We're trying to be versatile to the point where if you're not on a commercial corridor, you don't have to have a lighted sign. There may be opportunities where we can look at that same aspect on the commercial corridors. There are some businesses that have opted to illuminate their signs in a different way, not necessarily with an internal box, but they may have spotlighting from the ground. So there's other ways to address it. But like I said, we're willing to see how we can assist you with that. Okay? But you asked some very great questions. I really appreciate that.
We'll see how it goes.
All right. Any other questions? I'm sorry.
Like I said, I didn't need that mic.
So we want to make sure that everybody, when they view this again later on, they can hear all the questions and understand your concerns. Okay, thank you.
If the city doesn't find any money to give us grants and the time runs out in September, where does that leave us as the small business owner? You say the city's looking for money, looking for grants to help us out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't find any grants and we don't have any money, we're like we both in the same situation.
You're absolutely correct.
But then we get...
To be quite honest with you, I don't have an answer for that question right now because I don't know what resources may be available. I know that we're seeking out funding. If you're within the community redevelopment area, I already know that we have funding available in those particular areas. So it really depends on the address that you're located in.
I'm at 14905 22nd Avenue. 22nd.
Homestyle.
Yes.
You're in the CRA.
Okay.
You're in the CRA, so I know off the top of my head right now, there's funds available in that area.
For beautification?
I'm right around
Don't
the corner
forget the
from you. They won't fund me.
extension that's being considered.
I already told you. Okay. Okay.
So I need...
Any other questions? And that's a really good question.
I'm in the CRA, so that pretty much covers me. Does that cover tenants or just the building owner?
It's actually both.
Both?
Because we're looking at not just the tenant, we're looking at the property owner, because at the end of the day, the property owner is going to be the one mostly responsible for these improvements.
Okay. But
Okay.
and earlier I heard you say it's not really required that a tenant gets a signage. It's not 100% required.
It's not required that you have a sign, but if you have a sign where you're providing a service, I mean, you have a business that you're providing a service, or if you're providing a product, if people don't know where you are or who you are, and they just drive by because they don't see a sign, I don't see how you're going to be a viable business to be able to survive. Signage, like I said, is the way you greet your potential patron to come to your particular business.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
How is it that you decided who gets the help and who doesn't?
As I explained before, we have a community redevelopment area that was established in 2011. The boundaries were established, which only covers about 18% of the city. There's what they call a tax increment financing, which is a funding source that is being devoted specifically within the CRA area. So if your property is located within the CRA area, we're just beginning to generate those TIF dollars where we can reinvest those dollars back into the community. And I know off the top of my head pretty much what particular areas of the city are in the CRA and which ones are not. It's unfortunate that the boundaries are what they are. I actually wish the boundaries were a lot more flexible and they included a lot more of the commercial corridors. It doesn't include south of State Road 9 for the most part. So if you're south of State Road 9 on 22nd or 27th, you're not in the CRA. It does not include 135th Street. It doesn't include most of Opa-locka Boulevard until you get into the downtown area of Opa-locka. So it is restricted to those specific areas because those were the areas when the plan was developed that they were most concerned about the redevelopment opportunities that could be created within those particular areas. But as I was saying before, we're working with Miami-Dade County to see if we can utilize some of their resources and whatever resources we can draw down from them, and we're very close to getting those resources. We would actually spread those resources throughout the areas that are not covered by the Community Redevelopment Agency.
How do we know when this happens?
Most likely, we will be putting this information out, and there will be notices to let you know that the city is seeking information for those properties who are interested in facade improvements or signage improvement. We're constantly putting information on the internet through our website.
When approximately do you think this may happen?
I don't know at this time. I'm hoping that it'll be done within this fiscal year, which is from now through September. I'm hoping that we will be able to identify the funding hopefully in the next couple months, but I don't know the timeline as it stands right now of when those particular dollars will be available. And as I expressed before, there is legislation that's going before the commission to extend the timeline for the signage to allow you more time to be able to conform to the signage update. So that's going to take you into 2020. We're trying to work with the community as best we can. Ms. Wilcox, did you want to have a...
First advertised the change of the zoning ordinance, I think it was in 2014 or mid-2015.
2015.
Code enforcement personally distributed all of that information, letting everybody know back then, 3 years and a half now, that this was going to take place, and the time frame was 2019. I'm not sure if everybody here got that information, but we distributed that back then. So I'm just trying to make sure that everybody received that 3.5 years ago, because this is not the first meeting it's the first meeting, but not the first information that was distributed. So did anyone get it back 3.5 years ago? I guess not.
I had gotten it, and
You got
that's
it,
when I
okay.
started calling on the signs, and that's where I come up with a price. I can't afford that.
Okay.
And maybe you mentioned it, maybe I didn't understand. So you say the CRA has funds available now, or we're still waiting on the CRA?
The CRA, which has its own separate budget, we just started generating tax increment financing, which is the funding source we utilize to make improvements within that area. We are finalizing our budget for this coming year, and we actually have placed an allocation of funds available to look at facade improvements. As a part of the facade improvements, signage is a component of that. So we will have to, each application is going to be looked at on an individual basis. We're actually establishing the criteria for how businesses will qualify in order to be able to participate within this facade improvement program, and we should be rolling that information out probably over the next 60 to 90 days.
Okay, so it's not ready now. And it will just only be for signs or more beautification?
The first one is looking at facade improvement, so signage will be a part of that.
A part of it. Okay, so, all right.
Okay, any other questions? Well, if you don't have any other questions, I just wanted to take the time to say thank you very much for coming out. We do have our city manager, Mr. Newell Daltrey, who has joined us. He's actually in the back of the room, so I want to at least recognize him. And I'd like to thank IT for being able to broadcast this so that we can have this information go out into the community for those people who were not able to be a part of this session. So if there aren't any other questions or concerns, thank you for coming, and we look forward to working with you and getting your new signs in place. Thank you.